If your aim is to be successful in the Ielts test, stick here with me because I'm about to share with you some awesome tips to get you right on track to achieve your goal. Hey guys, welcome to Nova Tips, your YouTube channel with lots of tips on how to study for tests like the Ielts and the TOEFL, English grammar, idioms, and much more. My name is Leo Nova, and in this video here, I'm gonna focus on what it takes to do well in the Ielts. The Ielts, as you may already know, is a test aimed to determine your level of proficiency in English. Although the test is designed to measure your knowledge of the language, having a good command of English alone will not assure your success. You will need to learn not only how to manage your time efficiently and rein in your anxiety, but also familiarize yourself with the different types of questions in order to succeed. There are two different versions of the Ielts, General Training and Academic. The General Training version is for those looking to immigrate to countries that have English as their official language, while the Academic is used for those seeking a degree abroad. Nowadays, you can do either versions of the Ielts, both on paper and on a computer. In addition, scheduling to take either one is pretty straightforward. Just click on the link to the British Council's website I left here in the description below. The British Council is the co-owner of the Ielts, so in their website you will find pretty much all you need to know regarding dates, pricing, and the location of the test centers worldwide. The test lasts about 3 hours. You will have 40 minutes for the listening section, 60 minutes for the reading section, 60 for the writing, and 15 for the speaking. Just a reminder here, the Ielts, it's not the only proficiency test out there. The TOEFL is also very well known and widely accepted. However, they are organized slightly differently, so in case the institution you are applying to accepts both the Ielts and the TOEFL, it is good to get to know them in depth to make an educated decision when choosing which one to take. I'll dive into and explore each section in the Ielts in a minute. But before that, if you want more information regarding the TOEFL, just click here on this card and you will find all the info you need. Alternatively, click on the link I left below in the description. Just a heads up before we get into each section. The Ielts and the TOEFL also differ when it comes to accent. The British accent is more predominant in the Ielts, while the TOEFL mainly uses the American. The first section of the Ielts is the listening, which assesses your ability to comprehend spoken English. You will listen to 4 audios, which consist of monologues and conversations, and then answer questions about them. You may come across different accents in this section, such as Australian and American. However, you should get used to the British accent. As I mentioned before, you will hear the British accent much more often in the Ielts. After the listening, you will have 1 hour to go over the reading section, which consists of answering 40 questions about different texts. There are several different types of questions, and in order to explain them in more detail, I've made other videos in this channel addressing each type. The reading in the academic version has 3 sections, each with a long academic text. That is, each text is extracted from textbooks, scholarly articles, and so on. Although the general version also has 3 sections, the first 2 are based on more general but authentic texts taken from notice, advertisements, company handbooks, official documents, books, magazines, newspaper. Only in part 3, the test will be similar to the ones in the academic version. Oh, and before I forget, if you end up taking the paper-based test, don't forget to allocate some time to transcribe your answers onto the answer sheet. Otherwise, your answers will not be graded. After the reading, you will move on to the writing section, in which you will have 1 hour to write 2 essays, one shorter and one longer. In the academic version, the short essay will be an analysis of a given graph, map, or table. In the general version, however, the first essay always consists of a letter. It is essential to be familiar with the different types of letter, such as personal, professional, formal, informal, and how they differ from each other. The second essay is basically the same for both. You will be asked to express your opinion on a given topic, needs, wants, likes and dislikes, and that's it. The only difference though is that the general version allows you to use a slightly more personal style than the academic. And last but not least, the speaking section. Here, you will be tested on your ability to speak fluently in English, make correct use of words, verbs, structures, and so on. Well, to be exact, the speaking section is not necessarily the last portion of the test. It can sometimes be scheduled to be taken days after or even before the other sections. Sometimes the speaking is done a few hours after you finish the first 3 sections, later on the same day. This option, however, is only in place to accommodate applicants who have to travel from other cities to take the exam and cannot wait around a few days to do the other portions of the test. I myself decided to take the test in another city because where I currently live, I would have had to wait 5 months to do the test, and I just couldn't afford to wait. But if possible, I strongly recommend doing the speaking section on a different day. This way, you have more time to dedicate yourself to it. Plus, you won't be so exhausted and emotionally drained. The speaking is the quickest section, and unlike the TOEFL, it is done with an actual person. That's right, someone will actually be there to interview you. The speaking is divided into 3 parts. For starters, the examiner will ask you basic questions like your name, likes and dislikes, and so on. Kinda like an icebreaker, really. In the second part, you will receive a topic and have 1 minute to prepare your response, and then 2 minutes to talk about it. Finally, in the last part, you will be asked to discuss in more detail what you answered in part 2. Generally, the questions in part 3 are more complex and abstract, and it will require you to have a better command of the language. Super important tip, although it may sound a bit silly. Follow the instructions. Do only what is asked. It sounds obvious, but we sometimes have this annoying need to make a good impression and end up speaking far too much to showcase our knowledge. Please don't. Resist the temptation to show off and just stick to the question. For both versions of the Ielts, general and academic, the listening and speaking sections are the same. The difference, though, lies in the reading and writing sections. Each section in Ielts is scored individually. Scores range from 0 to 9, varying from half to half point. Additionally, an average score of the 4 sections is also provided in the end. Scores in the Ielts are classified by bands, which are used by institutions to determine whether you have the minimum knowledge required by category.
Okay, Nova, but what is the minimum score to pass the Ielts?
As I mentioned before in other videos, there is no such a thing as a minimum score to pass. It's the institution that determines the minimum score. Generally, they require at least a band 6.0, but obviously, the higher you score, the higher is the likelihood of being accepted by them. If your intention is to use your scores for immigration purposes, keep in mind that Canada uses a different grading system called CLB, or Canadian Language Benchmarks. This is a scale created by the Canadian government in which each CLB corresponds to a certain amount of points towards your application process. But keep in mind that there are several factors that determine your final score. Since my goal here in this video is to give you an overview of the Ielts, check out the link I left down here to get a better understanding of the role of the Ielts in the Canadian immigration process. That's a tricky question. In theory, the Ielts is accepted worldwide. Australia, the United Kingdom, and Canada are just some examples that stand out. However, some institutions still only accept the TOEFL. To find out if the institution you are applying to accepts the Ielts or not, simply go over their list of prerequisites. Usually, the piece of information is quickly spotted in their website. But if by any chance you are struggling to find this particular piece of information, leave your comment here and I'll make sure to help you out. Like the TOEFL, your score in the Ielts is valid for 2 years from the date you take the test. But keep in mind that you don't get the results right away, okay? It takes a while for you to get them. They are usually available online within 10 to 15 days after the test and then sent to your address by post about a month and a half after the exam. First of all, you need to find out which is the nearest testing center to you. Depending on where you live, you may need to travel to another city or state to take the exam. I left below the link for you to check out the closest location to you as well as test schedules. The easiest way to apply for the Ielts is via the internet, through the British Council's official website. Don't forget to schedule your test for at least 1 month before the date you will need to have your results in hand, because you never know, unforeseen events can always happen. The price of the test may vary depending on why you're taking the exam, but you will find all this information on the same link I've just mentioned. It is really important to arrive at the testing center at least an hour before the test is scheduled to start, so you have enough time to go through the whole screening process. And please do not forget to bring along with you the ID you used to register for the exam. For example, if the document you provided was your passport, that's what you should bring with you. You can retake the test as many times as you want. Just keep in mind that you have to pay the test fee each time you do so. Retaking the Ielts test will only be necessary if you don't reach your intended grade the first time around, or if your results have expired after 2 years. Otherwise, you're good to go. To prepare for the Ielts, all you need is dedication. Getting ready requires nothing but practice, not just for each individual section, but also when it comes to time management.
But how should I prepare for the Ielts, Nova? Should I apply for any online course, buy study materials? What would you recommend?
Well, it depends. There are several courses online, a myriad of books available. I myself tested everything. The truth is that there's a lot of good quality content online completely free of charge. But as you can imagine, it can be hard to spot the best resources among so much junk. So stick with me on Nova Tips and I'll guide you through it, okay? Although there are plenty of great resources online, they can only help you so far. Pronunciation issues, for one, are much more complex to be fixed only by reading texts and watching videos online. In this case, if you can really invest in your preparation, I'd highly recommend hiring a private tutor. Hands down, a much better investment than paying for a bunch of online courses. A good tutor will spot your weaknesses and prepare specific classes to fix them. In my opinion, having a qualified tutor is a game changer in your preparation. But watch out, knowing English alone is not enough to qualify someone as a good tutor, okay? Look for a professional with real experience who has an efficient method to help you. If you don't know anyone, I'd like to recommend my friend Anna Gingley, who lives in London and has assisted me with my videos here on the channel. Her contact details are down here too. Well, now that we've gone all the basics, you're ready to start your preparation for the test. But before you go, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to stay on top of my videos and check out the links I left below in the description. That's it for today. See you in the next videos.